Hey, what's up, world? It's MarcosLuis back again in season 2. This is OneMicNite, the podcast that brings you stories of artists in a personal journey, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you in the business. So today, really excited. We have an actor. Most of you guys know me from OneMicNite, hosting the live shows and the music, but I'm really excited when I get to talk to an actor about what they do. So my next guest, you've seen him everywhere. He's been in short films, he's been on TV, he's been in featured films, but he's most known for his recurring role as Felix DuBois on General Hospital. Please welcome Marc Anthony Samuel to OneMicNite.
Hey.
How you doing?
Man, thank you. I gotta have you like do my introductions anytime I walk into a room. That's nice.
You like that? Thank you.
Very nice. Makes me feel important.
Good. Listen, I have questions.
Yes.
First question, who is Marc Anthony Samuel?
Who is Marc Anthony Samuel? Marc Anthony Samuel is a human being that at a very young age had an affinity for entertaining people. Started back in Chicago in my parents' living room, pretty much bringing a halt to any social event that was going on so that everybody could take a moment to watch whatever nonsense I was doing. And I don't know, Mark, I'm not going to talk, I don't want to talk about myself in third person, like LeBron James.
Right.
LeBron James loves basketball. No, but I'm a regular dude, man, who has an aptitude and an affinity and an attraction to the creative and to the artistic. And I've done a lot of things in my life over the years working, but the thing that always brings me joy is that which is most, connected to creating and art. Whether it be visual art when I was a little kid, or singing when I was, a child, or, acting. And gratefully, thankfully, I was able to create a career out of being an actor. And for that, I'm very grateful. It's nice to be able to kind of synthesize that which is in your environment, your world, and have opportunities as an artist to express them in some type of media or format. So yeah.
I like that a lot. So you mentioned Chicago. That's where you were born, Chicago?
That is my hometown, Chicago, Illinois, and I moved away from Chicago as a little boy. But even after I moved to Oregon at a young age, between 11 and 12, I would always come back in the summers back home to Chicago. So essentially, I was kind of growing up in both places, and most of my family's still back in Chicago. Like just as we were talking, my sister, who's back in Chicago and South Shore, just texted me just a second ago. So that's my home.
That's your home. That's interesting because I spent some time in Chicago too. I went to school there and I lived there for quite a bit of time. And I say I'm from Chicago. I'm not really from Chicago.
Yeah.
But that's where I spent the longest time. Do you feel like that city helped form who you are?
Absolutely. I mean, and now just to be clear, just so people know, I also consider myself an Oregonian. Okay. But both Chicago and Portland were huge in formulating who I was as a young man, a kid to a young man to a man today. But whenever I think about it, some of the most important things that were formative for me happened in Chicago. Just lessons I learned, my relatives. I was not only raised by my parents, but when my mom passed away and my dad was trying to take care of us and raise us on his own, it was with the assistance of both my maternal and paternal grandparents. My maternal grandmother was just as important, and my paternal grandparents were just as important as my actual father being there. It was such a good familial unit. And my influences in terms of just how I look at things, even the foods that I eat, I'm a Jamaican food fiend because half my family's Jamaican, but you ask me to cook it, I have a very limited, menu that I can do, but I know what I like to eat.
Right.
So, but yeah, Chicago was very important.
Interesting. So how was Portland for
Portland,
you?
okay.
I know a little bit about Portland too, because that's where my family lives now.
Okay.
Portland,
Yeah. So, I mean, so we have a shorthand when I tell you that between the cultures of Chicago and Portland, there's like, you're introduced to a completely different thing. It's a culture shock.
Absolutely.
And even today, as the diversity is increased in Portland, it's still nowhere near that of a larger metropolitan area where you have many more people of a diverse ethnic, cultural, religious. I hate using the word racial because it's such a misnomer. We're all one human race, but our ethnicity, our culture, who we are as Black people,
right,
in the United States isn't as highly reflected in Portland. It's not non-existent. It does exist, and those people come from traditions that are probably from the East and the South, and then as it goes in my family, the Caribbean or wherever, and ultimately back to Africa, Right. But it was not as represented at the time that I'd moved there. It was, however, a great place to grow up, and it was great to come from both of those places, because as a result, I was able to, I would always tell my friends, I can go into a room and speak with anyone about about a myriad of things.
Absolutely.
Because of my human culture experience.
Right.
Whether you're, coming from the sticks and talking about your dirt bike, or your, shooting guns at a Target, or or you're talking about hooping until the middle of the night in the Lawndale district of Chicago with your friends, and sometimes one of your friends just suddenly disappears. I can talk about that. I can talk about, art, growing up, and my favorite things being museums back in Chicago, and the museums were my friends as a child, and then coming into Oregon and being like, I would also catch garter snakes. It's a complete mix up, and I think it actually contributed to my curiosity and my expression as an actor. I really do believe it. It certainly changed my accent.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. How do you think that stimulated your creativity as an actor? I
think as a result of having the experience of the majority of people in my environment being phenotypically, physically similar to me, then suddenly going into an environment that was homogenized, but most of the people looked different than me, and then meeting the Black people from Oregon versus the Black people I knew from Chicago. It's a study in what's the word I'm looking for? Anthropology. We are not only the result of our genetic composition, but we're also, I would even say more, the results of our environmental composition.
Yeah.
So, and that even kind of goes right back to why my father moved us out of Chicago in the first place. He had 3 young Black men growing up, and my mom had just passed, and he was like, no, this is Chicago. I'm going to take my children out to this other area so that they have the opportunity to see what else is going on.
Right.
And I mean, by that time we'd traveled, we'd seen other things. I'd gone back to see my family in Jamaica. There were things, and I knew certain things about my identity, which was good because I needed it as how shall I say it? I needed it in order to have enough fortitude against some of the ignorance that I was introduced to upon moving into a more homogenized environment.
Yes.
I could still grasp onto a sense of self, even though, the waves were kind of strong upon, moving to a different area than the Pacific Northwest at the time.
Absolutely.
And that's not a diss on the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful. It's lovely there.
Right.
It's nice. I think about maybe get there and getting a house someday, but it's like, at the time it was a little tougher,
I want to talk about that a little bit too, because what kind of school did you go to? Was it 50-50 Black and white?
Oh, no,
Latino,
no.
Mostly Black, mostly.
I mean,
what was the makeup?
So Portland is the closest town to which we were, but we lived over the Columbia River Gorge in a town called Corbett, Oregon.
Okay.
Corbett was, I would say, 97% Caucasian or European American, with little sprinklings of some people, Latino, Latinx people, but mostly white. And I want to say this more as an analysis and not a judgment. There were a lot of people that probably, for the most part, didn't get out very much. And because it was 20 miles east of Portland, but it was metaphorically farther than that from a major metropolitan area. The good side of it is everybody, the neighbors knew you. They were, you knew what was going on. People were friendly. People got along. The bad part is when you're growing up as a Black man, you can easily lose track of what that means, being in an environment that can't actually provide you with any personal resources. There were no African Americans on staff. There just weren't many there. It was us, and I think there was a family called the Dunlaps and another family called the Lucases. And the Lucases and Dunlaps were some black kids that were adopted by a white family. And again, that also is fine. It's a wonderful thing, right, that these loving families took in these children that needed a home. But then I would find myself in conversations with people who also, look, I'm still trying to find my way and grow up. They had no idea because they were in this other environment. Right. There's good things about it and bad things about it. The good thing is you just see yourself as yourself. The bad thing about it is if you're coming in from another place and people are asking you stuff and you know better, it was a little frustrating. But it was also the state where I got my acting experience. It was where I started doing community theater. It's where I got a lot of positive reinforcement from people, and I would trade none of that. We are a composition of our experiences, and to deny that which is my, cities of origin means I might not even be able to achieve the things I've been able to thus far.
Absolutely. 100%. So how did you funnel all that into the acting? How did you funnel all that into making it to LA or making it to New York or making it to...
Well, this thing was in me when I was, like I said, a 5-year-old, stopping the party to look at me, everybody, I'm about to do a show and completely improv a show that was only interesting to me, while the parents and guests were very politely listening and probably looking over at my dad like, when's he gonna be done? It was something that was always in me. So
did your father encourage that?
My father himself was a stage actor back in Chicago, and it was his dream at one time to be an actor. But I think the pull and desire to be a father, a parent, a family man was outweighed that of his acting spirit. So when he started to see that his son was wanting to do this thing, he had a lot of caveats for me. And one of which was, make sure that you always have a job while you're on your journey to get a job. The way it first came out of his mouth was...
Say that one more time, please.
Make sure you have a job or jobs on the journey towards your creative, employment.
That's the tip of the day right there.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people get this idea that, well, if I work, then I'll never be able to get to the audition or get here or get there. Well, if you don't work, you won't be able to get a house or be able to stay in the city where you're trying to pursue this.
Right.
It is possible. And I think our life is often expressed in terms of our perception or the limitations we accept to be fact, when none of it is. It's all fluid.
Right.
If we say, oh, I won't be able to audition if I'm working, you won't, because you will have a mindset that is, that is very narrow. You won't notice opportunities or ways to get things done. If you say, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to work it out, it usually works out. You're not the only person at a job. There are often people with whom you can trade shifts. You can pay them back. You can find different jobs which are flexible. You can have like swing hours. You can work at a temp agency. You can come into your own type of employment. You could be smart. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm good at photography. Let me take photographs and I'll charge people for those. Or let me learn how to be a mechanic, because I can run my own hours and charge whatever I want and go to the audition when I need to. You know, there's always a way to do something. Yeah. But the way that advice, I have to say, it's kind of funny. My dad said, make sure you have a job to fall back on. That's what he first said. I don't agree with the concept of falling back, because what you're doing is introducing a negative mindset into the possibilities of your artistic journey. Falling back shouldn't even be in the vocabulary. And I know that my father wasn't the only one to use that term. I think when parents care a great deal and love their children, they want them to be safe, just as my father wanted for me. So he didn't want to see me go out and do this thing and then fall into ruin, his nightmare scenario, fall into ruin and be on the street begging and whatever, you know. I mean, mind you, that's not, for me, that's not realistic. But for the parent who loves their children, they're going to always think in terms of the nth extreme. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
well, they come from a different mindset too, you know, a generation ahead of us where they had to work to make sure,
this is true.
It wasn't a thought about being an actor.
Right.
You know, there wasn't a thought about, they were geared to be professionals, teachers.
Right.
You know, be a doctor, or if you can, or, you know, those type of things.
And look, my father had immigrants that came into the country as parents who went through the same depression that a lot of our great grandparents and grandparents went through.
Absolutely.
You know, they come from a viewpoint of scarcity and like being prepared for something. And there's nothing wrong with that, as the 2005 and recent economic downturn because of this pandemic. You have to be prepared, and that hats off to anybody who considers that. But even amidst those things that are unpredictable, life itself is unpredictable. So what are we going to do? Are we going to walk through our life with fear of something that might happen? Or are we going to perceive that which brings us joy and happiness during this time and be flexible, be like water along the way?
Listen, I'm going to stop you for 1 second, because listen to this. So I have to go to your social media for something that blew my wig off today. And I use that expression because it was so poignant, and it was, you said, we're not going to be around here forever. Get your plane tickets, your dreams, answer the questions, kisses, and I love yous as soon as possible.
Yep.
Also, know that your hair color is not too wild on you. And even if it is, so what? It makes you happy.
Word is bond, man. I mean,
best thing of the day.
It's true. There was something that, like my good friend Jack Plotnick, he's an improv actor, a character actor, brilliant. His mind is incredible, and I'm privileged to call him a friend. He actually had said something, posted something within his social media, which kind of got me thinking, and that is, there's no future, there's no past. Past is memory, future is imagination. The only thing you have is right this second. So we can take a lot of good things from the idea of being present. One, if you put good stuff into every present moment, I think that creates a line of success that can lead you to amazing things. If you put your present into, well, one day, days will pass, and one day may or may not come. Most likely not, because you've put it off as this intangible instead of taking action in your present. And if you live in your past, beating yourself up for things that, we all make mistakes. You know, our imperfection is the most perfect state of human existence. And you know, it's like we beat ourselves up and get hooked to something that we may have did, or somebody said we did, or regrets, or old relationships, or, you know, I should have done this, I should have bought IMBM stock, oh, I should. It's over. You just got to be here and just move forward. And there's always other opportunities that are equal to or better than that which you're holding on to.
Absolutely. And the problem then becomes is, how do we get to that point? How do people change that perspective? You know, you have that perspective. You know, I have that perspective. But how do people get to the point where they can do that?
Some people get to it through trauma. They lose a loved one. they lose a friend, they lose their family member who suddenly no longer exists, they die. Or they get it through trauma like an injury, where they're laid up in bed with a broken ankle. Oh man, I should not have been running with that cake in my hand. I couldn't see where I was going. And they get a little wisdom often comes as a result of experience.
Right.
Or they look at somebody they admire. They look at that person and go, that motherfucker's, excuse me, can I say that on here?
Yeah, sure.
That motherfucker's got their shit lined up. And somehow they either find out information about the person, or maybe they know the person and they have a good conversation. I had a conversation with one of my friends, one of my good friends back in New York, and he's done amazing things. He's been part of the best parts of the fashion industry. He's been in Hollywood doing his thing. He's lived, he has a place over in Hamilton Heights. He used to live in Kauai. Like, my dude never sits still. Wow. And he's like my big brother. But he said, you have to rage every day. Rage, not as in rage like dude we're partying, but right. Rage as in fight for right. yourself. Fight for that which you want. Fight, keep going. What do you have to lose? I mean, we are all going to be past tense one day.
Absolutely.
So while we're here in this experience, in this game, have fun playing, have fun with these new experiences. Hair color is a small example of what I mean. We get so caught up in what other people think when we pursue that which makes us happy. And a little hint, nobody cares what you're doing.
Exactly.
No one cares.
Exactly.
I used to get caught up about stupid stuff. When I came to LA, they're like, don't tell anybody about your age. Don't tell anybody about your orientation. Don't tell anybody nothing. It's like, nobody cares. And anyone who does care, it's about them and the problems they have in their own lives.
Right.
Live your life. And the better you do that, the more often you do that, your successes will line up like dominoes. Because you're free of that negative energy pushing against you that Absolutely. You create.
The burden has been lifted.
Yeah.
It's honest.
We haven't even talked about acting yet.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Right. I know, right? Let's do that. Let's get into acting. So now you are best known for your role on General Hospital, although you've done amazing work.
Thank you.
How is going back to General Hospital for you? Because it's been a pretty long career on General Hospital too.
Yeah, honestly, if somebody would have said, "Hey, man, you're going to be on an ABC TV show for going on 9 years," I'd be like, "Oh, well, that sounds fun." But acting is a gig of seasons. We pass through it, and you do these jobs. You become very close to people, and then you move to the next job. Hopefully, you take along some of those people in your personal life. Maybe you get to work with them again down the line, which I've had the pleasure and privilege to do. But it's transitory. So just to be able to say that I've been able to do this for this long, it's not just up to me. There's a whole system of things that go into being able to participate or be a part of or be a person that people like enough that they want to see.
Yeah, consider.
So man, it's been wonderful. It's always good to be there. That is one of my families. Even after it'll be, who knows when it comes to an end, but that'll always be an important part to me. And I've got to always give a shout out to Frank Valentini, the producer there, Mark Teschner, our casting director, ABC Television, Walt Disney. One of my first experiences was being a part of what was called the ABC Talent Showcase, and it was a diversity showcase that happens in New York and LA and other places. And we had a great class of people. We had like this Janina Gavagnar. We had all sorts of people. We had the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan
Markle. Yeah,
she was part of our group.
Wow.
And just to be able to have my long-term job be with the same network that I was part of this program with, that was so important in a wonderful time of my life, and to still have a lot of friends from that experience, that's been wonderful. So I'll always hold ABC in high regard just for those moments in my life and stuff. Whether I end up going to another network or doing something else or whatever, it's a time that I will always be grateful for.
Oh, I like that. I love that. Talk about some of the other projects you've worked on. Are there any favorites that you have?
Reasons. Yeah. There's different reasons. There's favorite ones. I mean, even down to commercial work that I used to do. When I first came to LA, I was shooting a lot of commercials. And this is back in a time where money was flying left and right, where they were sending us all over the world to shoot stuff. And I was part of this campaign for Hallmark. And it was a product called a Kiss Kiss Bear back in the day. And they had magnets in the lips and they would kiss. And anyway, there was a series of commercials that the three actors would do. My friend Sean Christopher Davis, and my friend Rachel Luttrell, who some people may know from Stargate Atlantis, and we were in this kind of love triangle scenario. And it took us to San Francisco, took us to Norway, took us to Canada. We got to do a lot of great stuff. So wow. on that tip, that was one of my favorites because of all the travel and getting to see different things and be with these people that became friends with and I'm still friends with to this day. For stunts, one of my favorite jobs was NCIS Los Angeles, where I got to do some serious fight choreography. And then of course, getting to work with, LL Cool J.
Yeah.
Chris O'Donnell, you can't be mad about that. But
absolutely.
Just the stunt work, that was amazing. For the experience of just being able to stretch out beyond my comfort zone, I got to shoot with Michael Ojeda was the director of this film that I did, a horror film it went under two names, Savaged and Avenged. I think Avenged was the later name for it. When you work, there's often working titles and they change because of any number of reasons, but that was a wonderful experience. I got to work with some seasoned professionals that knew what was up, who helped guide me along the way during the course of that work and to be settled in, and that was wonderful. My stage work in Portland, I did 6 Degrees of Separation, and then I did Miss Evers' Boys. Mm-hmm. And some of the actors I worked with on Miss Evers' Boys, some of the best actors you will see in the world. They were Ashland Shakespearean, they were serious, heavy, and they gave me, on the fly, they taught me a lot of stuff. This older actor named JP, he was amazing. He broke it down for me. On a creative level, an artist level, and on a personal level. Even auditions I had. There was an audition I had for a Disney thing years ago, and both the late James Avery and I came back for the callback. And even though I didn't get the job, James Avery introduced me to a lot of stuff that was culturally significant for me as a young actor moving to Los Angeles, trying to stay grounded. And he did that out of the kindness of his heart. He didn't even have to fuck with me. He'd be like, who cares? I mean, yeah, good luck, bro. But he actually took me under his wing at that time and said, this is Essalon Bookstore. These restaurants here are West Indian. Your family's Jamaican. It was a beautiful thing. So for that, forever grateful.
Do you feel like there's a community amongst, Black actors in Hollywood? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think more now than ever, it's important to have that community. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know what was going on, but I've had such support from amazing artist friends, and I'm not going to drop names of them, but I will say every single one of them has significant value to me, and some of them don't even know how much value they have to me just by having their company and perspective. I'm forever grateful for it. And now that we have an opportunity to have a wider representation of who we are on screen, I never thought my comic book, anime loving, goof dad would have a community represented on screen, and the artists around me to go, yeah, we just like you, dog. Word, because I thought I was a problem. No, that's what happens when you're in touch with your community, and when your community is represented in a much bigger way. And
do you feel like the events that happened last summer sort of initiated all this change?
Yeah, absolutely. The two things, when we say the events, not only the shameful events, but also that which is beyond our control. This pandemic forced people to pay attention. To pay attention.
Right.
Because they had nowhere else they were going to go.
Right.
They couldn't leave. They had to stay home and pay attention. So these movements, which have been going on for our people for ever since we landed here, now we're being seen and understood in a greater way by our allies. You know?
And because of the pandemic, we had everybody join in with us, right?
Yep.
And it probably would never have happened.
The creative atmosphere was like rich because, look, as you and I both know, hip hop and jazz didn't come because brothers and sisters are like, hey, everything's great. Let's talk about it. It was because of strife and struggle.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
And the pandemic gave certain groups of people a little taste of not being able to get their way. And that helps. That helps creatively, that helps spiritually, that helps people open their eyes and see across the table at their other brothers and sisters who may not look like them, but they realize humbly that they are them.
Absolutely, 100. Thoughts on the new presidency coming in?
Well,
does that give hope?
Yes. I mean, we can only go up from here, really. I'm optimistic. I am not a fanboy when it comes to politicians. They're employees that we vote in, and some I may have better feelings about than others. I feel more optimistic about this administration being able to address some things, correct some things, but we can't put that all on an administration. We have to, as individuals in this country, speak up, search, learn, because let's face it, you know, things that could be done in 4 years or 8 years can easily be undone in another 4 years, Absolutely. As we saw, as an example.
It can be undone in the first 100 days of the new administration. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what's more powerful than having a strong looking administration or a diverse looking administration is an administration that pays acute attention to the needs of the individuals of their constituency. What do we need? Because we're talking about a cross of culture. We have people of color that need certain things. We have poor people that have long needed some things. Some of those people I just mentioned are the same people.
Right.
We need them to have opportunity. We need to have education being something that is like the cup runneth over with it. Because only out of education are we going to be able to address problems in a realistic and honest way. But if we're lulled to sleep by reality TV or what have you, and you know, and no shade to reality TV, I watch some, but if we're only focusing on that big screen TV and not focusing on what content we can bring to the table to have an overall push or advancement of who we are, you know, 4 years gets changed just like that. But you can't fool a smart person.
You can. And it actually starts on the individual level, like we're doing now with the conversation plus action. That's how this podcast started during the pandemic, to empower our culture.
That's wonderful.
Talk about finances, you know, financial gain, wealth, you know, starting your own business, you know, being financially sufficient, all those things, learning about the culture, history of who we are and taking it forward.
These things that you just mentioned, could you imagine if at the elementary and secondary educational level, we were focusing more on more specific understanding of world history and economics.
Yes.
Individually, nationally, and internationally. Those classes, those are the things I think kids need to get. You know, more
I agree.
than go out in the world and we're not all like, well, who was Davy Crockett? Nobody cares about Davy Crockett when you have no money.
Right.
When you're in debt.
Right.
When you're trying to figure out your financial plan. When you're talking about generational wealth, you know, net worth, all these things. You know, I had to learn about this stuff in the world. I sure didn't learn it in school.
Right. I agree. And even though I went to those types of school, I wasn't privy to that information. My family we didn't sit down and read the Wall Street Journal. Nope. We didn't, talk about stocks over breakfast.
Yep.
We didn't do those things. And now we're getting to a point where everybody's helping everybody, and you're learning and you're telling other people and you're showing other people. That's what we need to be doing for this whole culture.
And mind you, we can acknowledge the fact that we've been staggered in terms of a culture.
Absolutely.
There was a huge advantage that a certain part of the world had prior to us being legally able to do, which we should have an inalienable right to do. So we're catching up. Right. But I would also say to those people that think there's a system that's always working against them, which there's some things that are working.
Yeah.
But you can't rest on that like a crutch. You can't. You know what I mean?
No.
We have some amazing examples of just excellence in spite of forces working against them.
We do.
Whether it be athletically, creatively, being a person at the forefront of business, at the forefront of medical discoveries. This doesn't have a color.
Right.
This can be done. Look, we do need to clean up parts of society, like parts of things that have been working against us, but we also can achieve. So, again, back to the individual. Okay, so I've been given this piece of garbage. I can either look at it and complain that I have a piece of garbage, or I can fold it out and see what I can make with it, or I can throw it away and get something I want. You know what I mean?
It's mindset.
It's absolutely mindset.
Yeah, you said it.
Yeah.
So what do you have coming up in the future that you can talk about? Anything?
I just shot during the pandemic, lots of testing, I do this because it's like shoving something up your nose. But, I have a film that's going to be coming out. The working title was Game of Love, but I think the title has changed now. And I believe that's going to be coming out on Netflix. I wish I could give you a date. I can't because I don't know.
You don't know.
When it comes out. We're going to have some more episodes of GH coming out. One came out today. I'm going to go to work again this week, so we'll see which direction the storyline goes there. I have a writing partner with whom I've been doing some really good comic stuff. We've been shooting it, and, because of the pandemic, it slowed us down a little bit, but we hope to have some things all lined up. We've been shooting several different sketches, and I feel like as soon as we can get all of them put together, we'll start shaping them like shows and stuff. But I'll let you know about that.
I like that. Well, Marc, I want to thank you for your time. You are the bright light, and I hope everybody listens to this podcast and they share it and download it and subscribe to this podcast. Tell everybody how we can find you on social media, or how we can get in touch with you and keep up with you.
My social media account for Instagram and for Twitter is MarcasArt. Marc as art. It just means Marc Anthony Samuel Artist, but shortened down. Marc as art. And I guess that would be the way you could, see what's up.
Thank you very much. Well, make sure you follow him on all social media. Listen to him. Watch him. He has the info. Tip of the day.
Well, I have some info. Y'all got info that I don't have. So, go ahead. Y'all are all shining lights. Shine some my way so I can see what's up too. Because, no one human. We're not an island. We have to work together.
Working together for sure.
What's that thing? It takes a village.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to OneMicNite podcast. You can find us at OneMicNite. OneMicNite is spelled OneMicNite. Go to the .com, find all the links to the social media. You can find me at MarcosLuis, MarcosLuis. Same thing, go to the .com, find all the social media links. If you have any questions or you want to come on the show, let me know. Inbox me on Instagram at MarcosLuis. I want to thank you for joining me. Once again, we're out.